Welcome to Three People Like This Interviews with TJ Stone. And now, TJ Stone.
It's rare, but I'm a little speechless that you're here because I've been waiting a long time for this. And I'm insanely grateful that you're here, and I feel very, very blessed to have you.
Well, thank you, TJ. I feel like I'm the one really who's the beneficiary of this relationship, and I want to say thank you for the work you're doing.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know how to accept that, but I'll try. I'll
just try being with it.
Yeah.
Stop blocking, dude. Just let it be.
Shihan Jean Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
You have to switch hats sometimes. Some people call you Professor Dunn, Shihan Dunn, Brooklyn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, owner-operator.
Mm-hmm.
Jean Dunn's Shotokan Karate, owner-operator.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been in the martial arts for?
I started in 1981. I was 11 years old.
11.
So I'm 17 now.
So you have 5 or 6 years experience.
Yeah, a couple of years.
I mean, you really are a well-respected, well-known martial artist. And I think for all the right reasons.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Leader amongst men.
This is getting so thick.
Yeah.
Please. Listen, my feet are made of clay too. Thank you for the compliments and thank you for the acknowledgement, but really, like,
back off a little bit.
No, not back off, but let's keep it in perspective.
I saw you walk on water once, and we'll get to that later in the. I did. I wanted to set the stage. I mean,
it's one of my goals.
I'm not just saying those things to get because you're here but I wanted to add a little perspective to it because I want to get into your history. I want to get into what makes you who you are.
Sure.
But there is a certain amount of reverence when you're around in the martial arts world, and duly so, because you walk the walk. And when I say that, I don't mean it like if people are listening and say, when you say martial artists, I think nowadays what comes to mind is tough guys. There's that MMA thing that's going on out there, the UFC thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, as from a spiritual level, from the real true martial arts mindset, you are the real deal to me.
Well, I think it's a matter of perspective. I'm sure that MMA fighters think that they're the real deal, and to some extent they are. Like,
yeah,
at this point, I'm sure most of them could annihilate me. I mean that, but what value does that have outside of that environment?
Right.
And then we're faced with that question as practitioners. I think the implication is a little bit deeper, than at least for men. Like what the big questions are, like, what's our value outside of our work? What's our value outside of our family? What's our value outside of our bank account?
Mm-hmm.
And the car we drive and all this stuff, and the watch we wear and the clothes we wear, and on and on and on again. So I think that there are some interesting parallels there. And for me, the martial arts has been such a beautiful grounding point, if you will. It really has kept its promise to me.
Yeah, I meant, as far as the physical capabilities of being a martial artist,
mm-hmm.
it's not as important to me as the spirit, the existential spiritualism of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I gained from training with you and being around the people at the dojo and in this world.
Thank you.
So the idea that it's just a physical contest, it doesn't even enter my mind. The guys that train, the people that are in MMA, I really, maybe it comes off as a little disrespectful. I don't mean it that way. Obviously, they put the work in. If you're in that world, there is this existentialism, there is spiritualism in what they do, but it just seems like in this culture in America, it seems like that emphasis is put on domination and violence and
I don't know, man. Maybe, but I found that when I was in those environments, when I was operating in with those kinds of thoughts and that mindset, that what is real, but like if we were talking about existentialism, or if we're talking about being effective and sustainable throughout our lifetimes, then I think we need to get really clear about the difference between power and force. And you're right, it looks like those guys and those girls are really, it looks to me like they're addicted to their force, using force, forcing their way in and out of situations. And I don't know, it's entertaining to watch. It makes a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah. I guess so, yeah.
I cracked on it the other day. Like, I'm sure that, Mr. Kano, the founder of judo, if he was alive today, would not put on a pair of Daisy Dukes and 5-ounce gloves. And,
Some of my favorite lines.
Yeah. Like,
I couldn't see Funakoshi.
Buy, sell guns on a tattoo on his back, or buy, sell condoms and going out there and doing his thing.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. I just don't see it.
Kind of got away from that. Maybe he'd be more into the, like he'd do a sushi commercial maybe because of his heritage.
Wow.
No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding. I feel like I make a joke about him. I feel like I'm making a joke about you, like because of your lineage, But it's like
I would be making hummus, my friend.
Yes, right. All right, listen, man. You've been in Brooklyn for how many years?
You mean, well, I opened the first karate school in 1994 on Flatbush Avenue on N and East 46th Street.
Right, so...
And I was homeless.
You were homeless.
I did not have a home. I lived on the mat for 2 years.
You lived in that store? And not storefront it was, I'm sorry.
It was a storefront. It was a storefront, but I lived
in
the
dojo and you lived on the mat.
Yeah, I didn't. I had zero money. Like my life was just really a shambles because, I was so wrapped up in competing. I had like titles. I had, a 6-time national champion.
6-time national karate champ.
Yeah. I was, went to the world championships. I was at the first karate tournament to be at the Olympic Training Center, but my life was a shambles.
How old were you
I was 24. It was 24 going into 25 the day we opened up the dojo, the day of OJ's slow chase.
Oh my God.
I'll never forget it.
Really?
Yeah. And
June
12th, it was my birthday, dude.
I remember it was in June. That was your birthday?
Yeah, June 12th or 13th or 14th.
Wait a minute. June 12th, the day you opened the first dojo on Flatbush Avenue, is the same day that OJ did the slow chase.
It's so ironic. But,
Oh, wow.
I
June 12th. I'm never going to forget that now.
Well, thank you. I think, the thing I think that's important is the most memorable part is not having a shower. Like I took a French shower in the bathroom of that karate school for 2 years.
I mean, 6-time national champ in martial arts from the age of 11.
Yeah. And my life got me to a very low point.
It did.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how where were you born and raised?
I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, Marietta, Georgia, and then my mother moved us to New York when I was 5.
So from 5,
you
lived in New York, in Brooklyn or?
No, Manhattan.
Manhattan.
But those 5 years in Atlanta were very, very, very chaotic.
Really? Do you remember them?
I remember a bunch of things,
Mayhem?
Yeah. My father, some stories that float around. Like I think my father was on the Georgia FBI's 10 Most Wanted. My sister had said something about that. There was constant drug raids, there was guns, there was
my sister had mentioned that my father may have been on the top 10 FBI's most wanted list.
Well, the Georgia Bureau.
So he was a wild man.
I wouldn't say that with any kind of reverence. He was.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Well, I wouldn't want anyone to think that that's
When I say
it was destructive.
I'm just, you know what it is? I'm trying to lay the groundwork for your history, if you don't mind. If I'm getting
please,
too deep,
please.
let me know.
No. But go as deep as you want, buddy.
Okay, so
I think it's very important for people.
Yeah, I do.
Look, I got a story for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first time I was on an airplane, let me backtrack. So when I was competing and throughout my 20s and 30s, I would get on an airplane whenever I would travel, and I would immediately sit by the window. I still sit by the window on an airplane. It's like my go-to seat. I never sit in the aisle. But I would always constantly look out the window and try to see if I could see this like familiar image of the sky turning bright orange. And I had this picture in my mind from when I was very young of like flying and looking out and seeing this beautiful sky. But I never was able to see it again. And, I kept having that memory. And one time I just called my mother. I was like, Mom, like this really strange thing has been happening my whole life. Like I get on an airplane and I keep looking for this memory that I had. And I was like, was I on an airplane when I was a little kid? And she was like, yeah, kinda. And I knew right there, I was like, kinda. So I said, Mom, what is that about? And she says, well, when you were like 2, your father had done this armed robbery job with these guys, and they hid the money in our basement. And because the chaos was going on, like I found the money. She says, I found the money, stole the money, and hightailed it to Texas.
She protected you.
Well, sort of.
And your sister? How old is your sister?
Well, they're from different dads.
Okay. So was she with you at the time, or?
Yeah, I think my younger sister was with me.
So she grabbed you at the age of 2.
Yeah, and she's like, "We're getting out of Dodge. I got a sack full of money."
Oh my God, this is a movie.
So he tracks us down, and he's like, "Look, you got to get this money back to me, or they're going to kill me." And so my mother, I don't think my mother wants to go home because I think she's worried. That's what I put together. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so she stuffs the money. She says it's like $10,000. So in 1971, that's probably a lot of money.
Sure.
Right? It's a lot of money now.
It's a lot of money now. Yeah. But but the point is that it was stolen money, and his crew wanted that money.
That's right.
They didn't do all this just so your wife can run away with it. Right? Wow.
Boy, that's off of Brooklyn of you, dude. Way to put Avenue X boys on this.
I'm just imagining how some of my friends might phrase that.
Yeah. Some of my friends. You mean you?
No. I'm a very good actor as well, Jim. I was playing a character when I said that. What are we doing with this cash here? Where's the cash over here? Nobody in Georgia sounded like that,
So yeah, she puts the money in a doll. I have a Raggedy Ann doll or Raggedy Andy doll.
Right.
And she sticks me on a plane, and I money mule this money back to him.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
And that memory is from that moment.
So you were transporting drug money across...
Not drug money.
Stolen money.
Yeah, stolen money across state lines.
Do you remember your father from how?
Yeah, sure.
How long was he in your life?
4 years.
4 years.
5 years.
And where was he from?
He was from Atlanta.
He was from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he lived in Atlanta.
Yeah, he was a very interesting fellow from the perspective of his son, but I think a very tortured man. Tortured.
Yeah. Did you hear stories of him from other people, that friends or family that would tell you things about him?
But I remember stuff.
You remember? Was he angry? Was he tough to be around? Or because sometimes,
dude, I don't think you can imagine what the house was like.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's stories like he was constantly trying to get after my sisters.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy. And then they were like there were people showing up, like my mother would say, like he had KKK ties. He had, there were people showing up from like when he was in jail, like really like some very aggressive people, always around, always guns. Like I can remember like them going out and like me being 2 or 3 and being left alone. So that should give you
That's
some
insanity, yeah.
But like going and getting his pistol and playing with it. Like, could you imagine?
No.
Yeah.
So he would have voted for Trump, is what you're saying.
Wow.
Is that bad to say? No.
You just shined a light on something that I never looked at before.
Really? What did I do? Just trying to be a goofy bastard?
No, I mean, but that's a fascinating thing to say. Like, yeah, there's all the Trump voters.
He would have had a tiki torch and he would have been marching to keep the statue up.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, listen, man, I'm so happy she moved us out of there. Like, my mother said something really beautiful to me. I think I was 11 or 12. We were walking down the street, and she says, "Hey, would you ever date a woman of color?" And I said, "Of course I would." And she said, "Good, because we're not racist." And that was a defining moment for me. She's a Lebanese immigrant.
Yeah.
Her family, like she grew up in this kind of convent / orphanage. And when she was 17, she was given the choice to move to South Africa to be an indentured servant to a white family.
Oh my God.
Or to marry someone who was 40 years older than her.
This was a Lebanese cultural thing.
Yeah. And
they would do to women.
Yeah, and then move to America. Now, this guy is, look, he's my brother and my 2 sisters' father. So I want to be gentle here, but he ends up shooting my mother.
Shooting
3 times.
Your stepdad.
He's not my stepdad. He's the dad of.
He's
before me.
He was before you.
Yeah, and in some ways he shoots me too. But
holy mother of God!
Yeah, that's
insanity. Why? So
I think it was cultural.
This is when she came to Atlanta.
She came to America. He brought her to America.
He was a Lebanese, and he was from Lebanon.
Lebanese immigrant. He was 40 years older than her. I think his idea was to go to like an orphanage or like a girls' school or something. My mother says it's not. Like she says they're barefoot to get water, walking to get water in the mountains. Like it's not like a rich kid place, right? Like it's like
sure.
I visited it. I went to Lebanon and visited the place.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was wild, dude.
Incredible.
It was wild. That's a whole other thing.
And so essentially, men would go and pluck a girl.
I don't know about men, but that's what he did.
Yeah.
And so I think he knew that she didn't have any family ties. He would like lock her in a closet. He would like, she said he drugged her. Like there's a lot of stories I don't know the truth on, but I do know.
It's gut-wrenching to hear that, man.
That he shoots her. He shoots her.
And the question jumps into my mind. It's like, why? But the answer immediately comes because he's an animal. And I don't want to generalize or just oversimplify, but I can't understand treating a woman, a human being really, but it just seems like such an abusive, violent way to live.
Yeah.
Did she tell you the story?
Yeah, I used to play with it, or the bullet hole, like I would call it, her second belly button. I know that's weird. That's TMI, right? Yeah,
No,
he shot her in the
TMI.
stomach 3 times, and she has exit wounds, and so
she lived through 3 bullets.
Bro, the story is crazy.
What is the story, if you don't mind?
Well,
and this is before you were born.
This was before I was born. But what I was going to say is that being the child of that kind of trauma.
Yeah.
In order for me to make sense of it, I have to backtrack. Like I have to understand my dad. I have to understand him. His name was Joe, and I have to kind of look to try to understand. Like this, I was talking about him. This student of mine, of ours, in the last podcast. But He's just out of AA and fantastic guy. And we had an interesting conversation the other day, and he said something. He said, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
You know, so I do agree that it was horrible. It's a horrible way to live. These are horrible choices that people make. But if we're to kind of break the cycle, if you will, or if we're to work inside of the context and not put a bullet in our mouths ourselves, we got to understand a little bit deeper. Like,
yeah.
And so I think he was a child of abuse.
I think so.
Yeah, like so.
And
it doesn't make it okay.
No, absolutely
but just
not.
to understand it.
No, there's no justification, obviously. But if you want to understand it and try to get to the root of it, so that maybe in the future you can divert somebody from becoming that way.
Yeah, like, look, man, I had to find a purpose for my life.
Like yourself. I was going to say, like yourself.
Otherwise, I was done, man. Like, I think I tried to commit suicide the first time when I was 15, 14.
Wow.
I OD'd on pills that I had gotten from the street.
With the purpose of
yeah, man, I was done. It
wasn't like you had a wild night. You were like, I'm killing myself. This is it.
On purpose.
On purpose.
And
of course, given the two little stories that you told me of,
bro, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
That is just an iota
just
of probably what you've been through.
And so back to my mother's story,
Right.
because I think this is really phenomenal. She gets shot. She walks out of the house. Now, this is Atlanta, Georgia, early 60s, Lebanese woman, doesn't speak English, height of racism, right? Height, I don't know, but like it was
no shade on racism.
No shade.
Right.
Hails down a car, asks the guy to drive her to the hospital. He goes, I can't. They'll think I shot you.
Oh my God.
She begs him. He accepts. She stays conscious till they reach the hospital. She makes sure that they know that he rescued her. He saved her. She dies on the operating table. Comes back out of a coma and is in the hospital for a year.
Wow.
Here's the real kick in the ass. This is the thing that informs my entire life. And I ask her, I say, Mom, how'd you do that? Could you imagine the will to live? I mean, if you look, her family gave her up when she was 2. And all of the different traumas that happened, all of it, being with an abusive man, and it culminating with him shooting her. And she still fights to live. And I say, like, Mom, how did you do that? And she like wistfully like goes like, I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. Man,
it's a gigantic sentence.
It informs my entire life.
I mean, because if that's what she had to deal with, right? It makes everything seem like it's like you can navigate almost anything.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think I had to grow into that idea. You know, like for a long time, I thought I was the victim of it. Mm-hmm. And that was what got me in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Like it got me trying to commit suicide. It got me bringing a shotgun in when I was 15 to high school to kill a kid.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to lead up to those years like that.
Yeah, they're very problematic.
Because you know, I have 2 sons, you know, and I'm watching. I'm not going to say
they're students at the school.
Yeah,
black belts.
Yeah, my boys.
Great kids.
Proud.
You
black
should
belts.
Be.
They're proud to be part of the school.
Thank you,
I'm proud of them. But
yeah, I could see it in your face.
But again, man, this is what I mean when I talk about how we, you know, the school and our family and our culture of martial artists approach life. It's why it's important that you're saying this. It's really, really cool. You're sharing like this.
Thank you. If I may, like, you know, I say this all the time. The people that come to the school, they understand that the dojo. I was talking about it today. Like the dojo translates to the house of the way.
Yes.
like the house where practice is performed, is studied, like the way of transformation, like they don't see it as a gym. You know, we talk about real life issues, and like it sometimes it's feel good and sometimes it's not.
No, it's...
And people work hard, man.
Oh, yeah, no, I would never even refer to it as a gym. A gym is...
I was saying, like, yeah, it's like this. I fundamentally reject the idea that a karate dojo is a gym. I said to the class today, I said, I get tits, ass, and steroids when I go to the gym.
Yeah,
that's what
a
I
gym.
get.
That's a gym, right? Right.
And you're happy about that.
Sure, that's what you go there for, I guess, you know? Not me, but yeah.
What do you mean? You getting steroids in the bathroom, Teach?
You know, I'm happy to get just a Gatorade at this point in time, you know? Man, there's so many things racing through my mind because that history, the foundation of your life is psychotic. I don't know if that's the right word, but chaotic and insane and intense, nurturing. There's no, oof. Right?
Yeah, I had this. I asked my mother recently. I had this memory of having a babysitter when we first moved to New York. I was 5, and I asked if she remembered them, and she was like, "Of course." And I said, "How long did they babysit me for?" And she says, "A week." And then we didn't have money. And I said to her, "You mean that I took care of myself from the age of 5, 6? Mm-hmm. And she said, "Yeah."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it was me, man.
It's incredible.
It was me.
It's incredible. Just a tiny snippet of my history. When my mother was 10, when I was 10, my sister was 6. My mother was a very... She was left wing before it was popular to be left wing, like a real hippie.
You mean she wasn't a hockey player?
She's
like she
not
did,
a hockey player, right? She was like a liberal hippie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She essentially
God bless her.
put my sister and I on a plane and took us to Arizona and didn't tell anybody where we were, just to get away. And my father...
How old were you?
I was 10. My father wasn't an abusive guy. He wasn't wild. He's a working guy. But she just rejected the whole Italian-American thing that women have to be in the kitchen.
Wow.
But she had arthritis, and she was taking prescription pills, and she just clicked. And she just lost her mind, but took us to Arizona. In her mind, it was justified. She was.
It was all that Italian food.
Yeah, she just clicked, man. You know, it just sent her over the top.
Yeah.
And then nobody knew where we were. We didn't have any money. We were living on, you know, in the basement of people's houses and friends, the friends of a friend.
Yeah.
And some crazy shit took place.
Yeah.
Between me and, you know, stuff with my sister. So I have a taste of what you've been through.
Well,
you know?
I would suggest that that's why you and I can relate.
I think so.
It's like
I think so.
These stories and these experiences that inform the work we do together at the karate school, they're on some level familial.
They are.
So you don't find offense to them. They're not, and that I think that's what I'm grateful for our relationship.
Me too. And I think there's safety there, and there's comfort, and there's a place to work this stuff out.
This is what I'm saying to you, man. Like she said it. Like I kept putting one foot in front of the other. Like I'm not scared of that idea. It's very challenging, but you know, when I was younger and I still thought that I was a victim, I didn't like her. I didn't like her because I didn't understand her. And the more I kind of shedded this nonsense that I was dealing with, the more I could see her. And so, like you're saying, like it was like safe for me to go like, oh wow, right, here's this very strong woman, and that's what she does.
Yeah, because you're looking back now as a man you're looking at it from a different prism, right? Through a different lens, and
it's a much different lens.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And as a kid, you don't know. You're still developing. You're still working. Like the human brain's not supposed to go through the stuff that you went through. That's why it's interesting to me that you're 5 years old, 6 years old, and living in Manhattan. And where in Manhattan were you?
The Upper East Side,
which was insanity at that time.
Nuts.
It was. You say Upper East Side, you mean like the tip of Manhattan slash Harlem slash crazy shit.
My friends who grew up with me say that they're a little older than me, and they describe that neighborhood as being very, very aggressive.
Oh, it was crazy.
But not like, I remember like this, gangs killing people in the park, like all kinds of stuff, right? But it was there. I think what was more insidious is that there were predators walking around in that neighborhood all the time.
Yes.
Man. Yeah, I got stories.
Do you?
Well, yeah, like kind of, man. Like people just being really weird.
Yeah, it was unchecked at that time. It wasn't.
And there was no internet, man.
There was no internet. There were no cameras. The cops were just like half the cops were gangsters. Were essentially gangsters that said, "I need benefits."
Look,
right?
I started doing drugs when I was 9.
That's what I wanted to get to. Go ahead. Yeah.
And then
we smoking pot.
I started smoking weed. I blew coke for the first time when I was 12.
That's unbelievable to me.
And then was off to the races, if you will.
Incredible. Where does a 12-year-old get coke? Well, welcome to Manhattan.
That's my point.
19. That's your point.
Yeah,
right?
like there were so many people that were like
it was the norm,
bro. Look, I remember this guy showing up at my neighborhood one time. He was from Puerto Rico. Like he had to get out of Dodge because he worked at the morgue, and they caught him doing stuff to the dead bodies.
Yeah,
and he had to get out of Dodge. He was a heroin addict.
Come on,
and he was like a neighbor's family member, and so he started hanging out, and like. When he told me the story, I was like, okay, dokie, like this is
fantastic. And he told you the story.
Bro, when you're getting high with someone.
Yeah, he's like, oh, bro,
Yeah, like.
How old? And you were like 12, 13?
I think I was younger than, no, maybe I was a little older because I have this memory of like walking around the city with him. I think I was a little bit older.
Mayhem.
It was that was a colorful guy. That it was a very colorful character.
Oh, man, it's incredible the way our children are being raised now. My kids.
I wouldn't know. I don't got.
I know.
Kids,
I know you don't have, but I mean, kids in general. It's a whole. We're very protective. We try to isolate them from that stuff.
I think that's a pretty good thing, but
sure. But
I think you got to worry about some other more various sinister things like the internet.
Yeah.
For all its great things, brings
it does
predators into the home.
So you got to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, you have to be so aware.
How did you get into the martial arts then? You were 11?
So junior high school, first year of junior high school.
Upper East Side.
Yeah. I get busted with a joint in the 7th grade. I think I'm 11 or 12.
Jesus Christ.
And I get suspended. My mother gets, like this is the worst of it all. Like my mother gets called in from work. My mother's doing 80 hours a week. Yeah. She told me when she moved to New York, she made like $1.40 an hour.
Yeah. Yep.
And for my mother to get called out of work was a big deal. And I was such a douche. I was such a little shit. Like, I was so angry. My mother got me out of school. She was furious. And I'll never forget, I turned to her and I says, don't say anything to me. There's nothing you're going to do or say that's going to change anything.
Oh, wow.
And her and I just brawled. And I ended up running away from home.
Of course.
And then
it stands to reason,
bro. If I could take it back, I would.
No, but this is great though. This is great.
And I slept on a friend's couch. I slept on a roof. I was gone for like 2 or 3 days, and I think she was bugging. And so my brother came to visit. I don't know why, but he came to visit, and they had the idea to have me move with him to Chicago. He's a scientist. He's a very smart guy.
So your older brother from...
My older brother's, at the time, was the youngest person in history to get a PhD in particle physics.
That's
He's a super genius. Super,
my brother
genius.
has a PhD too. You know that, right?
Oh, no.
He's the head of the Woodrow Wilson Global Climate Change in Washington, D.C., Dr. Mike. God almighty. It's unbelievable.
Well, Dr. David Malouf was working on the God particle 40 years ago. That was his thesis when he was 22 years old. At least that's what he told me.
God particle.
And they just found it 3 years ago.
Yep.
So
in the collider, that's his crew.
So
excuse me, we found the God particle. That's my crew. Malouf.
Now get this money back to me.
Now put the money in the teddy bear and get it back to New York. What are we doing?
So
excuse me, Malouf, this God particle has got to be worth something. We got to sell this to the interwebs. We can put it on eBay. That's the idiots I grew up with. We put this thing on Amazon with this God particle. It's got to be worth a couple million. All right.
David, if you're listening, I got no control of the interview.
Dave. I'm so sorry. Dave, listen, we got to buy some Bitcoins with this God particle.
So,
all right. Yeah. So he comes from Chicago.
Yeah. So I move in with him, and he's doing a fellowship at a laboratory, and there's...
I'm sorry, that sentence is amazing. He's doing a fellowship at the laboratory.
And his younger brother...
Smoking pot in high school.
Well, not just smoking pot, but
coke,
like...
Just wild.
Out of his mind. Out of his mind.
Yeah.
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 I started hanging out in clubs when I was 12. Like...
New York was popping.
I snuck out of my house to see Iggy Pop when I was 12.
Yeah.
And slept in an abandoned building on Avenue B.
Yeah.
And made it back home before, Mom went to work.
Wow. Those were that was like the golden era of the crazy Manhattan punk rock scene, and hip hop was coming up, right?
Yeah. I can remember going to the Bronx and being the only white kid in in a house party, and there was like, it was hip hop, like it was the inception of it.
Yep.
So,
I
go to live with my brother. He is a brown belt in karate. There's a karate class that's being taught by one of the very first black belts, American black belts, from the Shotokan group, SKA, at this laboratory. They had this little like house on the property of the laboratory that had no heat, no running water, and they practiced there 3 days a week. I think it was Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And he took me there.
And he knew these guys from...
They were scientists.
They were scientists.
They were scientists. Karate.
Shotokan Karate.
Yeah, like, man, at that time, if you were a karate black belt, like, talk about reverence.
Yes.
It was like this generation, this culture doesn't understand the sort of pathology of that.
They don't.
Look, when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in '94, there were very few. I think there were very few Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts walking the planet, and there was this reverence for them. This generation of Jiu-Jitsu practitioners don't understand that. It's out of the social consciousness, and so
strange.
Well, yeah, I guess it's progress, man.
Part and parcel of the whole thing.
Yeah. But like when our teacher would walk in, and there were 6 guys training. And I was the only kid.
But you were 11 at that time.
I was 11.
Do you remember the first time you stepped in? How you felt? Or
it was horrible.
You hated it.
It was so grueling. And
did you feel like you were being forced to do it, or it wasn't your thing? You were.
That's an interesting question. No. Look, one of the things that I can remember when I was really young, like I remember being like 3 or 4 and walking by myself in the woods in Atlanta, like in the suburb of Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember walking and realizing it's just me. Like there's no one, there's no rescue boats coming. It's just me.
Conscious of the fact that
I was it.
I'm here and I'm alone. And
yeah. And so as I started to grow up, it was unconscious for a while, but then it became really evident that I was going to have to parent myself. I was going to have to be all of it. My mother, my father, all of it. And so there was a part of me that really loved the idea of going to karate because in those days, and I think we've gotten away from it somewhat, like the people that are touting the martial arts right now in this UFC business don't realize that that this thing was made for people that were weak. Lots of them forget that they were weak when they walked in. Had we, the senior people, treated them like they want to treat the new people, they would have been long gone. They wouldn't have been champions.
Right.
They were weak to begin with.
Yes.
That's why I reject this idea like you can't teach heart. Like your heart was revealed to you, dude. No one taught you like please with the nonsense.
What do you mean the concept that you're either have heart or you don't? Yeah.
What a ridiculous notion.
Yeah.
Elitist garbage. Anyway, I could intuit, I knew that like learning karate would facilitate more of me being able to like handle myself.
Yeah.
And also like it had this like mystique about it in those days. Like there was a spiritual component that was at least being talked about.
That's right.
Maybe it was garbage. I don't know, like maybe the American mind couldn't grasp it, but like it had this like it had a feeling of a complete package.
An Eastern cultural thing that was other than
the American mind doesn't understand it.
Right.
For the most part.
Right. But it was something other than.
It was something other than, and it maybe this was my perception. Maybe this was part of the social consciousness. I have no idea because I was so young, but I knew somewhere inside of me that like this thing had the capacity to take me very far. And I still believe that.
Yes.
I still that feeling has never left me.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Because I'm thinking about you as an 11-year-old stepping into the dojo and what it was like back then. We still have we have a very traditional way of doing things, and that's on purpose, I think. But I love that part of it. That resonates with me more than anything. But the idea that this kid can go in there and then respect for your elders, bowing to the senior belts, never, some of the practices and the respect that comes along with that. It seems like it was probably a little bit more prevalent back then. And did that resonate with you, or was it, or did you, or were you even aware of it?
Man, it was rigorous. And look, I said this today in the class, and I love this point. How do you get to enlightenment? You chop wood and you carry water. And what do you do when you're enlightened? You chop wood and you carry water. So what that generation understood, and I think on some level this generation of martial arts understands very deeply, is that all there is hard work. And so the rigors of training challenged my ideas of existence. I was a fat kid. I was born of trauma. I was trying to self-medicate from the time I was 9. Like I had no idea. And the rigors, the formality, the interactions with grown men that were like, they were pretty serious, man. They were not jokers. It wasn't, no one was breaking 12 cubes of ice with their forehead. Like they were like we're staying in horse stance for 20 minutes.
That's how it was.
And
done.
that's the warm up. And you're throwing 400 punches. Now, is it the glory days? No, it's not the glory days. But the rigor helped me to see clearly over time reality or some semblance of reality.
Right.
Rather than just like, oh my God, my father is basically a murderer and a rapist and a drug dealer. My mother is an immigrant woman that was given up for adoption and shot by her first husband, and is working 80 hours a week just so we could have mustard sandwiches and mayonnaise sandwiches for lunch. What the deuce? Like, yeah. And then,
we only scratched the surface. This is going to be the Gene Dunn miniseries because I have a lot to talk to you about.
You might have a lot to talk to me about, but I don't know how interesting it is.
It's very interesting, trust me.
Why do you think it's interesting?
Because it's real. That's the word. It's real. There's a difference when you do these things long enough. You can hear the difference between people trying to sound interesting and then really being interesting. And it's always when people are real. That's why I said when I was talking to you the other day how I was trying to give you and Professor Glick a few minutes to get acclimated, and then after 10 seconds, I was like, all right, got it, because it's a self-conscious, it's a fight or flight thing. It's the thing when you hear your own voice. It's not unlike, many being on the spot, performing in front of people, fighting, whatever it is there's always that fight or flight that I had to work to get over. You're a little bit of a freak of nature that you could just do it. A lot of people get self-conscious in front of the microphones.
I'm constantly hearing myself talking.
Yeah, but it's great. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's that aspect of it too.
I'm always in my head anyway.
Right. Yeah, but in a good way, I think.
Thank you for that. There's a paradox here, if I may, like, it feels like the truth, but the thing I had to learn about the whole thing, that it wasn't the truth. The truth about me, and I got this through the martial arts and through training, is something way different. It's just some other thing, man, that like, I guess I chose to come here in this moment and with these parents and all of that to learn some lessons. But there is a quality of realness, I'll agree, but the paradox is that it wasn't real.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not really life. All of that stuff was.
But these are the external influences that informed whatever it is
that's a generous way to put it. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's loving.
But this is, it's true for everybody, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's why I'm really so adamant about look, a lot of my peers in the martial arts, it's kind of frustrating because they want to put a ring up they just to make some money. And they forget, or they ignore, or they don't really care that, like, this thing is so powerful. This thing really does have the potential to create transformation. The Japanese knew it, man. The Japanese knew it. They watched it over hundreds of years.
What do you think Funakoshi would say?
I don't know. I wrote on Facebook, like, sometimes I ask myself what Mr. Kano would say or what Mr. Funakoshi would say. Sometimes when I'm teaching class, I kind of look up at the picture and think, man, would this guy, like, approve of what I'm doing and saying right now? And I wonder if people do that. And
I think he would.
I would like to think so. I mean, look, I'll tell you how I really feel. I feel like I'm a steward of the martial arts. Like, it's my responsibility to take this thing and keep it intact on some level. Now, did I do that always? Hell no. No way. I bought hook, line, and sinker into this other way. And I got to live with that. I got to live with breaking people's arms and breaking people's ankles and, you know, knocking teeth out and all that garbage.
Yeah. But again, external influences and the stuff that informs you is right?
Bro, you can see that I'm not squeaky clean.
No, but
I didn't. I had a lot of issue. Right.
Nobody is.
And so
but the beauty of the way you approach it now is the idea that you look back on that and it informs who you are now. I keep going back to that sort of sentence but the idea that you're able to evolve and grow and learn and evaluate, I mean, that's life.
Well,
you know?
Well, and that's why I believe in the martial arts so much.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lovely question to present. Like, if someone's listening and they're a martial arts practitioner, well, like, is that happening in your practice? And or if someone's listening and thinking they want to be, you know, they want to practice martial arts because of these qualities that they can discover in the dojo. Like, there are places out there. There are people doing something different.
Sure. Yes.
You don't have to. You don't have to assimilate to douchedom.
To douchedom.
Yeah, like
that's right.
Unfortunately, I had to. Like, listen, man, I was the biggest violator, but
violator of
like I lost
them, that you call it.
Yeah, I was king douche.
Yeah, but I mean, it was, look, again, you were a young man with a loaded history of craziness,
violence,
yeah. And then it seems to me, if I'm out of my mind, tell me, but it seems to me that not only, but at that time that martial arts was an outlet for you, but it also was a funnel in which you could direct that anger that you were raised with, like hurt people, you know. But
yeah, man, I used to think like, I'm gonna knock this guy out.
Well, that was the idea, right?
It was the idea. I remember training with the Taekwondo Olympic gold medalist in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and you know, he was a very rigorous practitioner, and that guy, like, in that realm, helped me a lot, and I'm grateful to him for that on that level. But you know, he used to say something like, you don't need to care. You don't, you know, like, this is the understanding. Like, if you knock that guy out, so what?
You don't have to empathize. You don't have
like,
to be sympathetic.
I think because he came from this, I don't know, I can't put words in his mouth, but that's what I interpreted from it. Like, this was a sport. This was an accepted agreement, and you don't need to care. And
it's the desired outcome.
Right. And that idea got me so far away from my humanity.
Yes.
And got me into the worst. I was the worst person. Now, maybe he's a very smart guy. He's got a law degree. He's the mayor of his town.
Yeah.
He's a very wonderful man.
Sure.
And maybe he's obviously smarter than me because he took it in a different route. But I couldn't navigate that well. I couldn't. I didn't have the tools necessary to navigate my own humanity. And that was very problematic. And I don't think the American public is not intelligent. I don't think the people practicing martial arts worldwide I think they're very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
But I do question how many people are conscious of it. Like, I don't mean any offense to this. I know that you coach Little League, right?
I only do so because I despise the other coaches.
So, one of the things that has always stuck in my head is that Little League sports does not build good character.
It doesn't.
It weeds out the weak.
That is very well said.
And that's one of the things.
Or the perceived weakness.
Whatever.
Right?
Right.
Right.
I'll never forget this. One time I
love that sentence.
It was summer.
It's amazing.
It was summer. I was parked out. I was with Brian Glick. He went inside the post office, and I was parked by the post office, and I was on the other side of the street, and we were at the traffic light. I was on the corner, and this car pulls up, and the windows were down, so I could hear there was a dad in the front seat, a kid in the back seat, his kid, and another boy. And the car wasn't a Porsche, bro. The car was like a broken down car, right?
Right, of course.
The dad was grossly overweight.
Yep. I think I know this guy, by the way.
And I could hear him from like berating his son, going, "You MFer, like you should be more like your friend over there. You got no balls. Like hit the damn ball and run." And and I thought to myself,
I swear to you, I might know this guy.
I thought to myself, Teach, like I'm gonna get out of my car.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna grab this guy.
Yep.
And I'm going to enforce my will onto him and make him feel the weight. And I could. Yep. Like I'm 250 pounds.
You are Gene Dunn.
Well.
Never mind how much you weigh. I mean.
And like let this guy feel what he's making his son feel. Now, it's contextual, right? This guy, like people will sell their kids down the road for a little glory.
For what?
It's unbelievable.
For a little perceived glory.
Perceived.
I told you the story when my son first was, my little guy was a very good baseball player. We were in a nice little league, nice little neighborhood league where, the dads were making cheeseburgers and nobody took it too seriously, but he happened to be very good. So I didn't know much. I played college baseball for a year, by the way.
Oh, did
in
you?
Arizona. I was a very good baseball player.
I heard it's one of the hardest things to do to hit a fastball.
It's
like the size of a pea coming to you.
It's repetition, and it's just this little knack that you have for it.
Yep.
But my son played travel ball with this guy. He's a very well-known coach in Brooklyn, and this was right as we were training for black belt.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm coming from the dojo where people that can maul you within 3 seconds are also the sweetest, most kindest, most gentle.
That's our expression.
Right. And I see this guy start screaming at the kids. And like my right eye twitches a little bit, I'm like, and my wife goes, don't be that dad. Don't be that. I says, I think that's the wrong sentence. I think he's being that coach.
Yeah.
So immediately all of the fathers are like, this guy, I don't know why, but everybody's arguing about how mean he is. But so I just laid back for a second.
Uh-huh.
And after practice, they all went their separate ways. And I approached the coach, Hey, coach, I would never tell you.
The Brooklyn way.
Yeah, listen,
silently
coach,
behind.
I would never tell you how to do your job. I respect, thank you for having him on the team. I said, but, I don't know if that's effective, the way you're doing it. I don't, I'm going to tell you, straight up that I don't want you talking to my son like that.
Yeah.
He's 9.
Yeah.
And he's a child, and I don't need a grown man berating him and making him feel less than he is.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all. Sometimes you got to be a little rough with these kids. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll be a little rough with you.
If that's your perspective, but I disagree with it.
Yeah.
So it happened the second time. And then the third time, and he never really yelled at my son, but the third time it was a baseball game. My son came out of the dugout with tears in his eyes. And it was probably the most Italian moment I've had in 20 years.
As you're buttoning up your shirt.
Let me tell you what I did, man. He's lucky I think I only didn't hit him because of you and because I felt a responsibility not to be violent.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love you for that.
Yeah, well, because I was a representative, and I think it would have been a big disrespect. It would have been horrible.
Yeah.
But so we get in the car. Tommy buckles in. My wife buckles in. Michael's buckled in. I go, everybody's good? All right. I said, Joe, I'll be right back. I close the door. I go out, and I emasculated him verbally in front of everybody.
Yeah.
I screamed at him and got in his face, and I did the thing you wanted, like that instinct you had, and it's one of the worst, and I'm not too happy about the way I handled it, but I just had this. I screamed at him, and I'm going, and I'm like inches away from his face, and I'm going, go ahead, blink, make a move. I'll destroy you. I'm doing all this stuff, you know. And then I go, see, you don't like it, right?
Yeah.
You're embarrassed.
Lovely lesson.
You're embarrassed. Look at everybody. You're shaking. You're not such a tough guy anymore. That's what you make 9-year-olds feel like.
Mm-hmm. You know,
and I wish I wouldn't have lost my control. Maybe there was a better way. But anyway, that's my little league story.
You know, I think that lots of people deal with this. And I think my question, some people say I globalize too much. But
in what sense?
Well, this question is like, where does everybody think that this like this garbage we're dealing with in the political and social environment is being fostered? How is it perpetuating?
I think
it's
the
perpetuating in these environments.
Sure it is.
In this elitism, in this privilege, in this less than, better than conversation. And
absolutely.
No, if you ask me, like, Brian Gumbel ain't looking at that. Nope. I don't know. I don't know if he is or not, but like he ain't getting ratings the moment he goes like, organized sports is perpetuating the rape culture.
I think
organized sports,
I think so.
like the NFL doesn't want to talk about how they're just basically creating basket cases. Like these dudes are getting head traumas and then going and murdering their families,
killing themselves,
killing their families.
They're defective human beings,
and they don't.
Yes.
And everybody wants to like look the other way because people are making money, and no one really wants to look at it. And when I said it the other day, or I just said it on the show, like, I don't think Kano or Funakoshi was putting on Daisy Dukes and 5-ounce gloves and going and screaming obscenities.
The concept wouldn't even entertain the concept.
But I don't think
culturally,
until we come to terms, I think with this, with this. Look, the way that it appears to me is it's violence, it's force, and it's in its multifarious forms. And unless we get a handle on that, we're
doomed.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to be nihilistic.
I don't know
but
about doomed, but I mean we're
looking in the wrong spot.
Yeah, look at what's prevalent. Look at what resonates with people. Look at it. You know, it's incredible, that lowest common denominator. You know what was the most troubling for me is, first of all, I don't like the way I handled myself. There's a part of me that is happy that I didn't hit him and I wasn't violent, but then there's another part of me that is, I really lost control, and I did to him 1,000 times what he did to the kids, thinking it was for him. I hope actually they say he's a better person now because of it. He says he learned his lesson.
Look, I had a spiritual teacher, right? And he used to own flower shops. This guy is like legit. He is a loving, deeply loving man.
Yeah.
Deeply. And he said to me, or he said in the classroom, in the class I took, he's like, you know, one day I had the flower shop, and this guy came in and stole a bucket of flowers. And he said, like, I chased him down the street and I punched him right in his face.
And he's a sweet, loving guy, right?
And, you know, he was saying that, like, he was kind of starting out his spiritual practice. And he called his teacher because he broke his hand. And he wasn't happy about it. And his teacher said to him, like, look, maybe just maybe that was the only way that guy was going to get the lesson he needed.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, that's an interesting way to look at it. Are there more effective ways? I'm sure that this person that I took the class with would probably not do that today.
Right. But he might still instill the lesson on him in a different way. But
look, did I get out of my car and like put my thumb on that guy's head. No. No.
I'm sorry. The thought of you putting your thumb on his head,
because it would that giant gnarly thumb of mine would have covered
really
his
just
entire
indent
head.
his fat head.
Well,
and make it purple for 3 months.
I do think it's interesting that he was overweight. I do think that, like, what makes middle-aged men give up? Like, what makes middle-aged men, like, want to live through their children or through these sports athletes? Like, why does that guy got to be fat?
That's the thing.
Why does that guy got to live like that?
Here's the thing that struck me the most afterwards was, none of the fathers or mothers were, every single mother and father. My son, that was the first time he ever had tears in his eyes because of another human being. And I was ready to mangle him because of it.
Mostly he cried because you yell at him.
Usually it's me, right?
Well,
you failed me.
No. All kidding aside, that's you're in the role of parenting, right? Like you didn't have kids to be their friend, right?
No, but I'm very, very, very gentle with them.
Of course you are. That's what being a good parent is.
Yeah, and so if that's my son, I'm not going to tolerate anybody being other than I would, right? That's like somebody berating your students in front of you, and you're going to be like, dude, it's not happening, right? Right.
Or a friend of mine.
Or a friend, or somebody you love, anything.
Or at this point, anybody, really.
I know, but they allowed it to happen is my point. And they continue to allow it to happen. They allow other people to scream at their children, to yell at them under the guise that it's good for them and that it's discipline.
Look, don't you think it's interesting? I'm gonna pull this around, but like, don't you think this Me Too thing is so interesting? Look, like when hashtag Me Too came out, I went hashtag Me Too. Like my father used to try to get me when I was 2.
God almighty.
Like I said on the last show, I didn't complete the story because it was out of context, but I said in the last show that I don't like going to sleep. Remember that?
Yes.
Without the TV on.
Yeah.
And I realized it's because I think that someone is going to get me in my sleep. It's very real. It sucks, man. I wake up I wake up 3 times a night still.
Yeah.
And I realized that what I'm really worried about is my father molesting me.
Yeah.
And my mother pulls him off of me.
It's unfathomable to me.
It just really, it's really intense. So when the Me Too movement came out, like I hashtag Me Too too as well. Now, do I know it from the female perspective historically over thousands of years of abuse? No. And nor am I going to pretend to. But what I love about it is that people are finally having, because of the internet, because of the environment, because of the women that came before, and all of it, they now feel that they now feel that there's enough momentum that they're not going to be punished. Listen, the guy that went to the orphanage to marry my mother understood that she had no family, and that if she was isolated, that the cycle of abuse would continue. And he ends up shooting her. And that's in the consciousness, man. Like that those are real issues. And where is that violence perpetuated? Where are we continually transferring the energy and the ideas to men that's okay?
How much of it is inherent in a person's DNA and how much of it is learned? And are people like that, like the husband that gets a woman from an orphanage and then eventually shoots her after years of abuse, is that guy just a defective person? Or
and I think this is where we run up against some interesting ideas. Because I had to transcend that, man. I had to get out of that idea in order to wake up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kidding. Like
I know.
I said, you know this about me. Like between the ages of 25 and 27,
mm-hmm.
I have very little recollection.
I know.
it was such a dark period. And it's because well, there's so many reasons, but I have to challenge the notion of broken. If I let that permeate, I don't think it's a fundamental truth about us.
What is broken, essentially? What, that word is kind of...
Well, it perpetuates or it continues to sort of echo in our psychology.
Sure.
And so...
Our morals might be different than somebody else's, and what someone perceives to be right,
Yeah, well, I do think that there are moral principles
overlying.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Don't shoot your wife. Don't molest a child.
Hold on, let me write this down.
Let
me just write this down. You're saying do not shoot her.
Yeah, okay, here are the next commandments. Right. I mean, I'm being playful.
Things,
just
of course, yeah.
Listen,
yeah.
Don't roofie a woman at a bar and take her home and rape her. Right. Don't do a Bill Cosby. Don't do a Harvey Weinstein. Whatever.
Don't be an animal.
Yeah, but I had what I'm interested is in looking at the inception of those thoughts. What were the seedlings? Where did we go off track?
Yes. What manifests that?
What got my father to? I don't know what to.
All of it.
All of it. Yeah. What got him to that point? Now, it doesn't excuse his behavior. No way.
Without question. I know you wouldn't say that.
But where did we go off track?
Where?
And where we go off, I think, is in our perception of the truth.
I mean, it's the same idea that I say to myself. It's 2000 and what was it, 15, 16, 14, when my son was 9 or 10, and it was 3 years ago. So even in this, I coach the younger guy because there are those guys. There's a guy who told a 9-year-old with a pulled hamstring that you're a disgrace to our family. Get on the field. And I started shaking, and I said quietly in the guy's ear, I said, listen, brother, you say one more word to this kid, I'm going to knock you out. This is a 9-year-old boy, and it's still happening. It happened 5 months ago, Gene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, here's where we go. I know. Look,
But I wouldn't hit him, by the way.
My teacher now...
Too much. I don't want the thumb to the head. I just picture 100 guys walking around with purple thumb marks on their head from Gene Dunn. What happened to you? Gene
yeah,
Dunn.
Man, I spoke in class.
Gene gave me the purple thumb mark. Like a bruise that takes forever to heal up. You just indent their head and there's a purple thumb mark on their head. Look like a little indentation you can keep change in or something.
I hope my teachers don't hear this.
Like a little soup bowl on their head. You can eat cereal out of it. Powerful Gene Dunn thumb.
My head just hit the wall.
That's all right. It's padded. All right. From time to time, I'll add this humor. I'll inject some humor, ladies and gentlemen, here at the 3PLT studios. All right. Now back to serious issues concerning mankind and our way of life.
Yeah. Well. My mentor, we talk about this. Look, my sisters, right? The three biggest, most influential people in my life are my mother and my two sisters. I watch them my two sisters, my dad was trying to get them, and they never took that out on me. I told my sister Lila, you're the only reason I have a concept of love. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even understand I wouldn't even have a notion of it.
Wow.
Because she was very, very loving. They were
very nurturing,
protective. And it was only for a couple of years, but when we lived together, right? So my mother flees and because she can't get away from the dude. She's got to leave. And those two women, both of my sisters, are the first generation of women to earn more than their male counterparts in this country in the late 1970s, mid 1970s. And they're persecuted for it. They are like, my sister tells me stories about how like dudes, like groups of dudes would corner her and go, you effing
whatever.
See you next Tuesday. Like, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? Like, and they plowed through it. And they got scars, but like, I know they're revolutionaries. They might not say it, and they might be very humble about it, but I'm telling you that those three women are the archetypes for power for me. And I look, there's some deep implications about manhood here.
Yeah.
And about like why men have to force themselves on use force, because I think on some level we understand that women are much more powerful.
I think so. I think the men that do that, I
look at it culturally, look at it historically.
Sure. But there's something about, I don't know if it's my family or me. It's me. I love that about women.
Yeah, man.
I relish and I love that.
Because a man in his true power will support that.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. But if you look at the sphere, and this is why I said me too, because my mentor and I talk about this, and I say this in the classroom, and this is to your point about the guy on the field. Like, I said this, I said, like, look, ladies, like, we support your power. There are men out. I taught a women's self-defense seminar in the UN Women's.
I know, man. That's incredible.
It was one of the best days of my life. I was the only man in the room. And I had to navigate through so much stuff. But like I said to the women at the end of the class, I said, thank you. I thank you for letting me be a representative of the men out there in the world that actually do support you.
That's right.
There are some of us there. And I say to the women in the jiu-jitsu class, like, look, ladies, like, more power to you. Really, like, us men, we screwed it up. Like, look at the world. Like, we got a guy with Cheeto colored hair, driving the damn bus.
I can't believe I say that all the time.
Bro, he looks
let them do it. Just everybody step down and let the women run this for a minute.
Or let's co-create. But to the point, ladies, if you don't take love and compassion with you, and if all you're expressing is anger and frustration, which you have every right to do, because look, I know, man, like, I'm born out of trauma. I was frustrated and angry about it, but I kept bumping my head because I never understood that I had to bring love with me. I had to bring love and compassion with me in order for it to open up. Yeah. And I think that, like, look, my spiritual teacher at the time had to punch that guy in the face. That maybe that's what God wanted for that guy. Like, yo, I'm going to punch you in the face today so that you don't go to jail tomorrow. Who knows? I don't know.
Whatever it is.
I don't know.
The universe, it played out that way.
For him.
Yeah.
But like, the one thing we have to contend with, I think, is that the cycle of abuse will never get broken as long as we're meeting force with force. Our power lies someplace different. And that's really what I had to understand. That's really what all of the trauma was for.
This is what I mean. This is gonna be like a 10-part series, because I didn't even, in my brain, we didn't get past 11 yet, because I want to talk about those early years of martial arts, and that, if you don't mind, I want to talk about that chunk of life where, look, back then, especially if you're going to be competing, the idea is to inflict a concussion on your opponent. That's the aim of the game, is to knock him out or submit or destroy, right? So you're a product of the schools. You're a product of that environment, of what was going on at that time, and still does till today. So was it like that from the beginning? Was the idea to dominate, Or was there any spirituality in it? Was there any life lessons? Or
Look, when I was 12, I think that what those men in that room were doing was trusting that the rigors of training would bring about change.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Was there spirituality? None that I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I moved through and went to other schools, like,
yeah. So did you start at that where your brother taught?
Yeah.
So,
and then when I moved back to New York, I went to other schools. And look, man, hindsight's 20/20. I wish I could have been a lot clearer, and this is what I have concerns about, deep concerns about, is that I remember going like, oh, if I want to be good at this, or if I want to be accepted by men, by like what I perceived as powerful men, guys who could fight, guys who could take care of themselves, that I would have to assimilate to being a douche. Like I bought in hook, line, and sinker.
It didn't feel douchey at that time.
No, it did. Yes, it did.
Oh, so it went against the grain for you.
Yeah, initially.
Interesting.
But I was
That's
so
interesting to me.
I was so
I got you.
I was so vulnerable that the desire to get out of that feeling any way I could overrode my sense of going like, wait, lots of these dudes are dicks.
Is it a little bit of the victim taking control of his life in the only way that he sees fit? That if
I don't look, man, I'm sure there are really smart people out there that can kind of navigate this better than I did. But I look at martial arts schools and they're full of people. And they're full of people that don't seem to be thinking this way. Seem to be like, yeah, bring it on. Like, you can't teach hard. Jesus didn't tap.
Jesus didn't tap.
Bro, like Ezekiel 3, like, bro,
What?
the patches and the
Oh my God.
and the shirts and the
Ezekiel,
like,
what's
bro,
going on?
bro,
Jesus didn't tap.
bro, like, first of
Jesus
all,
also never choked somebody.
yeah, but
I mean-
well, like, first of all, like the master metaphysician advocated love
Right.
for every human problem.
Thank you.
Like I don't remember him punching Saul in the mouth,
No.
going like, I need more fish.
He didn't get him in an arm bar.
Yeah. Saul, come over here. Let me practice my heel hook on you. Bro, it's so nonsensical, man. So like, I have deep questions. Like, if people are knowingly being violent and violating their conscience, then what's behind that? And then, is there a conscience about it? Is it, or people just like, they're like, I don't care. Like, all right, you don't care. Well, like, you guys got daughters. You guys got sons. You guys got wives. You got, like, tell me you don't care when, like, heaven forbid.
Right.
But tell me you won't care when the tiger turns back and bites you in some way.
That's right.
Like, where's the responsibility?
Because because that's the mindset that contributes to that sort of culture that
We got to look at it.
man.
Look,
Yeah.
and this is why, look, I'm proud to be a part of the Me Too generation. What was the wearing black at the was it the Grammys? Like,
it was
the women,
the Time's Up movement with the black. Yeah, it was part of the Me Too Time's Up movement. Yeah, it's powerful.
I'm honored to be a man in this generation
And a powerful
when this is coming
presence in
up.
it. Yeah, that's
Like, I ain't afraid of get some ladies in power. Get some ladies like who understand what it means to be compassionate and loving and problem solvers in different ways. Let them contribute. Yeah. Go ahead.
Listen, it's such a reflection on someone when you try to stifle or denigrate another person, especially when a man does it to a woman. It shows such weakness to me. Because it's like this affront to your manhood or who you are as a person. And I always say to my sons, you know, when they sometimes as kids they'll be happy when another kid fails or their favorite
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I say his failure doesn't equal your victory.
Yeah, man. Or just because he did something good doesn't mean you're a failure.
That's right.
I say that in the class, like, look, don't punish your partner for doing something good. They did, bro. Support that.
Of course.
Support that.
What did he do right? How can I learn from that?
Yeah. Or just like give the guy a pat on his back, like, yo, man, that was hot. That was good.
Yes,
that was good. But this culture of win-lose.
Oh,
it's killing us.
It's terrible, man.
Well, it's killing us.
It's killing. It's like a cancer of the soul, I think. That's an hour and 30 minutes. It's 2:25. We have people that are slightly more interesting than me coming in now. So I'm going to wrap it up. This is part 1 of 6,532 with the inimitable, legendary, world-renowned Shihan Gene Dunn.
Thank you.
I love you, brother. Thank you for
Love you
sharing.
too.
Thanks
Thank
for being here.
This has been 3 People Like This Interviews with TJ Stone.
Got a house one near one box. You see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look on tall. Yeah. Well, hold up. Said you need to get a hold of your pride. Set up in the bottom of it to the day of the die. So you need to get a hold of yourself. Yeah. Well, you see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look on tall. Yeah. But the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing they always know, they always turn to me. Yeah, but you see me, believe me, I'm about to make it look on control. But the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing they always know, they always deny me. 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 Well, time